Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. Hope you're all doing as well as you possibly can be following the past week we've had following the Arsenal. And on top of that, to make matters worse, Christmas is over, New Year's is over. We're back to the reality of the working world. I'm delighted to be easing my way into the new year with the fabulous James Johnson. How are you, mate?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here, James. It's a pleasure doing these shows with you. So, yeah, happy to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you on, mate. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, it was very simplistic, mate. So that's what I want. That's what I enjoy. See the family, Toy Story 4, eat, done. It was on BBC when it over Christmas. Other channels are available as well as Toy Story movies. But yeah, hadn't seen that one, mate, and wasn't disappointed. For a bit of a cash in, but it did its job. It was still a good wholesome film.
Yeah, we should add a disclaimer. Other films are available.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, I don't know about you, but the TV over Christmas was absolute garbage, wasn't it?
I think it always is. I think it always is. And that's why the likes of the streaming services and what have you are taken over, mate, because the terrestrial lot just ain't there, is it? Just the content.
Certainly isn't, mate.
I mean, if they're still pumping out Mrs. Brown boys, I don't have much hope, mate.
No, it
So.
does make me wonder how much longer the Hootenanny's got left in it. But look, we're not
Do
here
you know
to.
what? There was a huge argument at work the other day because I told them that it wasn't live, and they were like, "It's always been live. It's on mine. It is not live."
No, they shoot it
I'm
back in
like,
July or
yeah,
something, don't
yeah.
they?
I was like, it is not live.
No, absolutely not. But
And then when they found out, mate, carnage.
I would just keep that under wraps, mate. I can imagine working in your line of work that can't always be a fun conversation to have. But I mean, not only was the TV rubbish, but we've had a couple of horrendous games with regards to our beloved Arsenal, haven't we, mate? I know we're here to talk about the Liverpool game that we've got coming up on Sunday. We're doing this preview uncharacteristically early ahead of that game, but we can't not talk about the defeat to West Ham at the Emirates Stadium, the defeat to Fulham at Craven Cottage. Obviously, there's been so much talk, so much hyperbolic reaction. Some of it, you could argue is justified. Some of it, seems a little bit over the top. We've seen people calling for Arteta's head, but there's no getting away from the fact that two defeats against two teams that I don't want to sound arrogant, but you should be beating if you've got aspirations to win a league, have now inflicted two damaging results that might see us fail to live up to a title race in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I couldn't help but watch obviously West Ham, and I feel slightly deflated. And then you know what, James, you can't always control what happens to you in football games. I know that, but you can control how you interpret what happens to you and how you respond to it. And if we let's just park West Ham to one side. If you want to go back to it, by all means. If not, I understand. But going into Fulham, if that is the response in terms of, you know, I saw some things to begin with the lineup selection, but for me, Kivior, I don't think he's a left back anyway. He's been thrown in because Zinchenko's got an injury. I don't know if it was just because he has an injury. I think it was very much like, you got to be dropped for a bit, mate, because you've stank out the gaff the last few games. And then Nketiah up top. As much as we've all backed Eddie and we want Eddie, it's evidently clear by not scoring a goal away in a calendar year that he is not the man to lead the line for this club, especially in an away game when you need a result to not only, like you said, stay in contention for what we believe is a title race, but also just on the fact of you got slapped basically a few nights before, and you want to turn this round. Like you said, the court of public opinion, and we know that some go completely that level. And there's some that are in the middle, and then there's some that are just no. We'll see it through. I don't want to say the trust the process phrase, but you know what I mean. And I just think to produce what we produced was absolutely dreadful, and that is from, and I'll toe the line here. That is from players that after they step over that white line, it's nothing to do with the manager. But for me, I think the manager to leave Eddie on for Smith Rowe to come on against West Ham and do what he did in that 10 minutes, looking better than pretty much the rest of them that played in that front four, apart from Odegaard, to not bring him on at all and leave Eddie on for 95 minutes. Wow. Okay, really? I was stunned. And then some of the response I saw as well about David Raya and how David Raya is being blamed. And I went, we don't score the first goal if David Raya doesn't react how he reacts. He claims that he makes a brilliant claim and rolls the ball out to start an attack, which thus led to us scoring. And yet he's being blamed. And I saw stuff today. Oh, he's got the lowest save percentage. Yeah, because we had the best defence. So he hasn't had saves to make. That doesn't indicate, just because he's got the worst save percentage, doesn't indicate that he's a terrible goalkeeper. If anything, it's a compliment that your goalkeeper hasn't had to make saves because your defending's been so good, which it has, apart from December. We've conceded 10 goals in December, which is nearly half of all that we conceded in the season before it. So we've had we've had a terrible month, James. We've had an absolute stinker of a month, which is why, like we're talking about now, is that we just need to react, and we need to react so positively, because I don't like saying, James, that he's chucked the cups in the last few seasons, but I do believe that where he won it, it no longer become a primary focus for him, and he focused on getting us back into Europe and then potentially winning that or winning the league. But I really want to see a reaction this weekend. I mean, you know me, I despise Liverpool anyway, James. But we could be playing, I don't know, Shrewsbury, and I would want to see a response of, a much higher level than the response that I saw at the weekend, because I thought it was absolutely diabolical from players as well as management.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fault lies at both their doors, doesn't it? I mean, you can't blame Arteta for maybe the second goal that Fulham scored, where the ball just kind of bounces around in the box and we just can't clear our lines. I mean, I find it really difficult to blame Arteta for that. But then, like you say, keeping Nketiah on for the entire game when you've got someone like Smith Rowe waiting in the wings to potentially change that game. I mean, nothing seems to be quite going right for us. I mean, we're not even getting those slight glimpses of luck that we've had in games gone by. So it really does feel like the world's against us a little bit, but we're not helping ourselves. I mean, the performances in the past two games has just been, from an attacking point of view, it's been really quite demoralising to watch. It's just not been exciting at all when you compare it to the free-flowing, exciting football that we saw last season, where we were scoring goals at will. In the league, we outscored the Invincibles, which is crazy to think. A team that had, Pires, Lundberg, Henry, Bergkamp, and we were outscoring them with Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard. But a big piece of the puzzle that obviously got taken away from us in the summer is Granit Xhaka, and there's been a lot of talk about him on social media. And look, we're halfway into the season now. We can't carry on talking about how much we miss Granit Xhaka and how good of a player he was for us last season. I don't think anyone's denying that, but you can't keep going back to it. It's gone. He's smashing it at Leverkusen now, and we've got to find a way of integrating someone like Kai Havertz into this team. But for you, JJ, I mean, I think we spoke right at the start of the season when we were still looking a little bit clunky, but we were getting the results. We were just scraping past teams and getting the wins, that we still didn't look quite as fluid. We didn't look quite right. That midfield was a problem. That left central midfield role was a problem. I think Havertz has certainly come into his own in the past couple of games, and he was one of the, I mean, I'm really clutching at straws here, one of the better players against Fulham, you could argue. But for you, is he still that guy to be the long-term left eight in this Arsenal team?
As much as he turned a corner for me, and I saw improvement, I think that he genuinely slows us down, and I think tempo is the way for us to go, James. If you look at last season, the speed that we were playing it at was what got us basically to me within 5 points of winning a title. And not just the tempo of it all, but also the finishing, James. The finishing. You know, there were chances. I mean, if I really want to be nitpicky, James, the goal that we score against Fulham, Martinelli should be tucking that himself. I'm not gonna blame him because obviously
He
it was
does
in
last
the
season,
rebound.
doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, you know, we score that. Saka's volley in the second half. He either takes the extra touch, controls that down, and places that in the top corner. It doesn't, you know, he doesn't go for like the old NFL, you know, over the post type kick there. It's just I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a case of again, don't want to get too bogged down in it, but is it that expression of freedom that we had last year because we over exceeded the expectations that I think maybe even the manager set? I think even he was shocked at how well it went, considering how well we did, because I think it was for what 30 odd game weeks of the league, we're pretty much unstoppable. It was just an 8-week spell where we at the end where we just completely, you know, it went awry, and I think that where it's now all of this, and I've seen it said time and time again, all this, effort on the control. Yeah, but we're much more controlled than we were last season. Well, I don't know if we have to sacrifice slight bits of that control to take a few more. It just like at Fulham, James. It just seemed very safe. Like there was no one. And I know people go, "Oh yeah, but Thomas Partey's that guy that plays those line breaking types of balls, and we haven't got that." I think that we've got those players in there, but for whatever reason, it looked like we were scared. Even at 1-0 up, we were playing like we were scared, and it didn't make sense. I just didn't know where that come from, because normally we'd be like, right, well, we're in the ascendancy here, and no disrespect to Fulham, they've got very good play. I think Palinha's brilliant. When we were linked with him a few weeks back, I was like, I wouldn't mind having Palinha at Arsenal at all. Hell, I think since he's gone to Everton and he's now at Fulham, I think Iwobi's completely reinvigorated himself, especially as an 8 player. I think he does a fantastic job as an 8 now, Iwobi. Would I have him back at Arsenal? Probably not, but I do think he's much more improved. I mean, Ben White, you can clearly tell is playing with some form of injury, because I know Willian's been very, very good for, but he just completely terrorised Ben White
Him
the
and
whole
Robinson.
time. Yeah, yeah. And if you look at the first goal, again, a lot of people are blaming Kivior because he's not going towards him. But I'm like, it all starts from Ben White. Ben White is too high up trying to play with Saka, and it just leaves that whole grass for, like you said, Robinson and Willian to just do whatever you want, because you've got a whole I mean, the minute you drag Gabriel out, especially into the right space, which he's not used to doing, you're leaving yourself, and it just all fell apart. Like I'm sick and tired of having to discuss how Arsenal just mentally crumble at certain times, especially when it comes to a crunch of a season. You know, when it's as important as it feels like. And I mean, it's not all. You know, we're still there and thereabouts. You know, but I do agree with what you said earlier, that there is a huge part of the fan base that's now conceded the title, and I do feel slightly that, if you think after that we showed at the weekend we can win a title, then I need to have some of your optimism pills that you've got, because I haven't got the same.
Well, we'll go on to that, mate. But just before I do, I mean, you mentioned that this to you comes across as a bit of a mental fragility sort of thing, and we've watched Arsenal for a long time. You know, we can go back 10, 15 years about how we've crumbled in big moments. I think for me, it's not even a mental thing. I just think we're really bad at the minute. You know, our passing is really astray. We can't string 2 passes together. Our finishing is just tame. You know, look at the shots we had against West Ham. We had something like 30. How many of them were straight down the throat of Areola? How many of them had, no power on them, or they went, miles over the bar? I think for me, we've just lost a lot of confidence. In attack, that's worrying, because you've got Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, Erdegaard, Kai Havertz. You can throw him into the mix. All these guys that can contribute goals and assists that were doing it last season. that just aren't now. But now you've got our defence that is looking shaky. And our midfields, I don't think has ever really truly been entirely convincing at any point this season. That's down to missing a big man in Thomas Partey, but we all know we can't rely on him at the minute. So I'll put the question to you, mate. Is this, as you say, a mental weakness that we've still got in this Arsenal team? And I really want to believe that we're getting over the hump with that side of things, because I agree. And that's why going into games at the likes of Villa, at Anfield, I never felt totally confident, because they're grounds where the crowd gets on top of you. And we've gone to places like Stoke. We've been to grounds in the Premier League against lesser opposition that have got, really raucous fan bases, and we've just capitulated. So
look at the one. I think you were there. I remember many years ago. I think we talked about it. Were you at Palace with the Bella in? With the throw in and evering all those years back.
Oh God, no, I wasn't there. But is that when we lost
3-0? Yeah, and just any throw that we got that was right near where every player.
Yeah, you're not fit to wear the shirt.
Yeah. It was so audible, and I was like, oh my God, just get this game over, get out of here.
Yeah, those are the sort of games I'm talking about. Stoke away, Palace away. I mean, even going to places like West Brom, Watford away. Like we've struggled in those games in years gone by. And Fulham was so reminiscent of those games. Like all of that control, domination, even though it's been boring this season, completely went out the window. So yeah, as I was going on to say, mate, is this still a mental problem with Arsenal, or do you think it's just a case of we're just out of form at the minute?
I think it's a bit of both. I think as much as I don't really believe the Ramsdale omission is as big of a deal as what has been made out by other people. I do feel that he was a very influential character in that dressing room and to those players. And I do think that maybe there was a hangover of not necessarily angst or animosity from players towards the manager for doing that, but there is that little bit. I mean, it's sort of like in your own workplace. If you've been with someone for so long and they're a close friend, and then all of a sudden your team leader goes, yeah, by the way, he's not here anymore, and I'm bringing my new guy, and you're like, well, what? Like, but he's, what's going on? But I think, and there's also, like you said, Xhaka obviously was a big influence in that dressing. But I just feel as well that they're a year older, they're a year wiser, and you think that some of them will step up. But I just think, like you said earlier, there's this slight just rut where it's just quite bad. Like,
Is there something to be said for this still being a very young team? Like, obviously, I don't want to use that as an excuse. Someone like Saka's 22, but played over 150 Premier League games. But you do have to take into context, Saka's young, Saliba's young, Martinelli's young, a couple of the other guys are young to an extent. Unless you're talking about the likes of Trossard, Partey, Cedric Suarez, El Nene, Jorginho, guys that are bit part players. Everyone else, the core of this team is still so young, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is the thing, James, is that, you're mentioning Jorginho's, you're mentioning Trossard's and everything. Trossard, the last few weeks, I'm a huge fan. I was glowing when we made that signing last year, James, especially after all this Mudryk and everything else. I thought, what a great little pivot that is to get that sorted. He's been dreadful. He is nowhere near the level that he was before. And I can say that for a lot of them. Martinelli is a prime example. But when you rely, it is a case of, literally for me, if Bukayo Saka or Martinelli don't do anything, then I don't. What does this team do? What does this team do? Because at the moment, and you know me, James, I love Martin Odegaard. I've had arguments with people that have had arguments with me about how bad Martin Odegaard is. I mean, I've seen people going at Declan Rice. I'm like, bloody hell, we were, okay, I've said that I'm slightly leaning towards conceding a title, but I would consider, if we didn't have Declan Rice, I'd have conceded this age. We're only in where we are because of Declan Rice. So it's just, yeah, I just think that at the moment, something is not clicking in there. And even just when you're not even doing the basics, like when 5-yard passes are going completely missed and everything, it just, like I said to you, we 1-0 up and we look scared, like we were in a panic. And again, don't want to be disrespectful, but like we're in a panic. We're playing Fulham and we're in a panic. Like, okay, they scored 5 in two of their previous games, didn't they, beforehand? But didn't they get slapped by someone as well?
Well, they going into that game, they'd lost 3 in a row,
Yeah, there you go.
conceding 8, scoring
Yeah,
none.
yeah,
So we had nothing to be worried about. Okay, they had a few injuries and players coming back, but we were in a position to really, put our, forearm on their throat. That's a terrible term, but you know what I mean. Like, just
yeah.
put them to the
It's a
sword.
classic. Yeah, go for the jugular, mate. Yeah, no, there's nothing.
Exactly, exactly.
It's a class old cliche in football, mate.
But there's an interesting comment here from Travisor. Thank you for your comment, mate. 2 vocal characters in the squad in Ramsdale and Xhaka have been replaced by very quiet players, Havertz and Raya. I've never actually considered that, but those marginal things could actually be quite important difference makers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. Yeah, I think Havertz, you've seen it, is quite a shy. Okay, he did that thing with was it Chunks and Sharky or whatever their names are the other day, where they tried to guess the imposter. It was some kind of YouTube video with some of the big. And I thought that was good to put Havertz out there, because you haven't really seen anything like that. You haven't seen anything that's more his personality, which is what I feel that they should be doing with David Raya as well, because we've committed to that signing now, James. He's going to be bought for the 35 million in the summer. That's already been done, which is another reason why we're struggling to do business now in January, because we've obviously committed to that move becoming permanent. And I do feel that there's this vitriol towards him because so many people love Aaron Ramsey, and rightfully so. I don't begrudge people that do love Aaron Ramsey, but I do feel the club hasn't done enough as well to help this transition. In that we all know he's the number one. We all know it, but I don't think the club's done enough to make him as endeared to the crowd as they have with Ramsdale.
Yeah,
And
maybe that will come when he does sign permanently, though.
possibly, I mean, but because for me, none of this is his fault, and some of the stuff that I've seen that's been geared towards him, I just think it's ridiculous. Just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, that goal that we get at the weekend doesn't happen unless Raya makes that quick stop and rolls that ball out instinctively like he did.
Yeah. So before we go on to the game that we're actually meant to preview, because we're almost 25 minutes in and we've not actually spoken about Liverpool, just 2 quick things that I want to talk about that seem to be hot topics at the minute. Obviously, those 2 defeats have inflicted quite a lot of damage in terms of our aspirations for the title. Liverpool just blew Newcastle away. I mean, they beat them 4-2, but it could have been a hell of a lot more. They're looking brilliant in an attacking sense at the minute. We're 5 points behind them, which, as we're doing this on January the 3rd, means nothing really. I mean, you can quite easily turn that around. But I think one thing that's quite clear at this point, JJ, is that unless us, City, Liverpool, or, even Tottenham come out of the woodwork and go on a massive winning run, this is going to be a low points winning title. I don't think this is going to be a title that's won in the 90s. And as I say, unless the team goes on a brilliant run, this could be won low 80s, mid 80s. So I still think we're very much within a shout of doing it. We beat Liverpool at home. We've got them to play at home in the Premier League. We're 2 points behind them. They drop points somewhere. We continue to, well, we've got to turn things around first. But if we continue to get a run together at some point, then we're very much up amongst it again. I'm not fussed about being first in January. I want to be within touching distance come April time. That'd be great for me if we're still, in the Champions League, still in the FA Cup, and within touching distance of the Premier League. I mean, going into the last 2 months of the season, very wishful thinking, but that would be fantastic. So obviously, very broad question I'm asking to you, and it's not easy to do after 2 defeats, but are we still in with a shout of winning the title?
I think until it's mathematically, I mean, like Phil put earlier, you don't concede a title in January. Until it's mathematically impossible for us to do it, then, you still got that, what is it, tribalism in you that, yeah, my club's going to do it. Especially me. I get jacked up on Pepsi Max, mate. I get silly and don't I at the best of times. So, yeah, until it's mathematically impossible, no, you're not gonna throw it away. But based on the evidence that we've seen the last 2 games, if you think that this Arsenal side can win the title based on the last 2 games, then you need to let us know who your dealer is, because you're clearly getting better stuff than what's available on the market.
Yeah, I mean, I've not got a problem with us losing games. I'm happy, not happy, but I will reluctantly accept that losing games is part of football, so
Yeah,
long as the performance is there. The problem is, you could argue on another day we win against West Ham, or at least we get a point against West Ham.
yeah,
But Fulham was dreadful. Like if
yeah,
we put in more of those performances away from home, and if you look at some of the grounds we've got to go to, I mean, we've still got to go to Spurs, still got to go to Old Trafford, got to
yeah.
go to the Etihad. I was running the numbers the other day, just kind of guessing where we'll pick up points, and I think we'll finish low to mid 70s, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough to win a
No,
league title.
yeah, no, it
Um,
definitely isn't. Definitely isn't. I mean, you mentioned it there. Uh, the loss at Newcastle and the one at Aston Villa, I can feel aggrieved by, because I do feel that we played well. Again, finishing probably weren't up to scratch, but there were two moments in those games where they've come out and apologised for it. So fair enough. And then the West Ham one again, yeah, okay, the finishing and everything else. But yeah, no, the Fulham one, yeah, no, you can't excuse. There's just there is no excuse, and it was all self-inflicted. That's the thing. I don't think Fulham did anything that was exceptionally brilliant, but we just mucked up and they pounced on it.
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, in 2023, I think we gave away more errors leading to goals than any other team. It's something like 11. If we cut those errors out, think how good we'll be defensively. But the
Yeah,
problem is, under Arteta, that seems to be the one negative about him, is that we do have these moments of madness. And okay, you can't always blame Arteta for it. Just look at Zinchenko on the first goal we conceded against West Ham, charging into Gabriel. You can't put that on the manager, but we have to do better at cutting out those individual errors. We had a hell of a lot of them towards the back end of last season when the pressure cooker really started to ramp up. But look, we're halfway through the season. We absolutely can turn things around. But as well, before we do go on to talk about the cup game at the weekend, worth noting that we are now in the January transfer window. There's a lot of people licking their lips at the prospect of Ivan Toney. For me, that is by no means a realistic possibility. What do you expect, and what do you want to see Arsenal do this window, mate?
James, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm normally very good with the windows in terms of what we're going to get, what we're going to do. Um, and some of the other guys that I do purely Arsenal with, we're not ITK per se, but we throw names out there, and they have we threw Tommy Asu out there before many knew about him, and he come in. There was a lot of people that were saying no about Declan Rice. I did have some inside info on Declan Rice, and I was telling everybody, calm down, we're going to make a record transfer for this guy. Don't panic. Man City will be outbid. Just stop panicking. We're going to get it done. But I cannot call this window at all. I don't have a clue of what we're doing, James. I
Well, we've got no
really,
money, haven't
really
we?
don't. Well, this is it. I'm like, do we really have no money? And this is the whole. If we tell everybody what we've got, that bumps all the prices up, or is it that we are complete? And I mean, honestly, James, I have no clue what we. I can tell you what positions I think we need, but whether we do it or not, I haven't got a Scooby, James. I
Well,
really.
I think we need a few. I mean, I think we could be looking at a left back, a midfielder, and a striker.
Well,
But
yeah,
realistically, are you going to get those? No.
well, that's me, James. Is that I'm like, you need a left back, you need a six cover, and you either, because they're talking about the main John Cross. I respect him. He might not be the best of the best, but he's quite clued up. He said that obviously there's Zubimendi in the summer, Neto in the summer, and an Ivan Toney or a big striker. The big outlay in the summer is going to be on a centre forward. For me now, if you can, if Nelson is linked with being sold, and I've got no problems with that personally. I know a lot of people really want to see Nelson more and everything. For me, I think he's had enough stabs at the cherry for me, James Nelson. I don't see that player in there. So if he was to go, if you could escalate or speed up that Pedro Neto signing to now, I would do it, because I think that you can then give Saka, he can play left and right, so you can give Martinelli breaks, you can give Saka breaks if you wish to. And I also feel as well that I still am a big believer of Martinelli developing as a 9. And yeah, I feel that if you move him in and then you have Saka or Pedro Neto as your wingers, I think that's quite frightening, mate. I think that could be quite a good front three if it given the time to develop and gel. But yeah, the left back one is a massive priority because the two left backs that we're seeing at the moment, they don't look anywhere near up for it, do they?
No, certainly not.
And they're both not left backs. Let's be brutally honest. They're both not left backs to me.
I mean, one's a centre half and one's a midfielder.
There you go.
And then the guy we want to be playing there's, picked up a serious injury. Someone in the comments here, PW, talk about bringing back Kieran Tierney, and we've seen that all over Twitter over the past couple of days.
Is there even a recall option in there, James?
That's what I've been wondering. Is that something we can realistically do? Is there points in doing it?
I'm like, I can't see that at all.
No, I mean, Tierney was so out of favour last season.
Yeah.
And he's been so horrifically injured throughout his Arsenal career through no fault of his own. But it's just, been a trademark of his Arsenal career.
James, if we were to recall him, which I've got no problem with whatsoever, then Arteta has to completely scrap this inverted fullback at the left, which he's stuck with. I mean, okay, he started doing it at the start of the season with Thomas Partey on the right-hand side, didn't he? Instead of doing it on the left. So I'm like, is he going to go for Ben White, who we've just spoken about 10 or 15 minutes ago, having a borderline like snapped Achilles that he's trying to run on? I can't. If you make Ben White do more, surely he's going to be exposed even more than what we're talking about now. So I can't see Arteta completely changing his game, because if you go to Kieran Tierney, yeah, we'll recall you, but you got to do, you got to give me the ball control. He's not that player. He's a guy that you trust to defend, and then he whips in his crosses, and sometimes he cuts in and has a shot like he did at West Brom. He can score goals himself as well. But that's a complete departure from what we've seen for 18 months now, from last season into this season. As you really believe Arteta is going to completely change his style of play? I can't see it happening. I can't see it. I would like to see it. I agree with what PW said there. This inverted stuff, I don't think it helps. But I can't believe that we would do that. I think he would sign another left back that falls into that system of what he wants to do, but is better defensively, which I believe Timber and Tomiyasu do. But obviously we haven't got Tomiyasu. So
no, it's typical. Just as he comes back, he's already gone off with Japan.
Exactly.
I would love to explore an idea of something like Timber playing as the right-sided centre half, along with Saliba and Gabriel, and then Tierney being the guy that. Wait, hang on. Let me think about that in the opposite direction. Timber being the one that inverts, and Tierney's the one that goes into the back three. That's what I think would be great if he was to stay at Arsenal.
I think it'd be class.
But it's not going to happen. I think Tierney is unfortunately finished at Arsenal. I think last season he made his most Premier League appearances for us. But I mean, how many of those were 2-3 minutes at the end of games? I mean, he's just clearly not rated by the manager, which is a real shame, because I think he's a fantastic player, brilliant character. I think he'll inevitably leave in the summer. And he gives you something different as well. Like he's an old school traditional left back, going to bomb on, puts a brilliant cross into the box. But he in terms of future Arsenal and in terms of coming back this January, it's not going to happen. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we can feasibly do this window, because we do need to do something. I think that's clear. But it'd be interesting to also see how the injury with Partey develops, because I'm not sure if you've seen the quotes from Chris Hughton. I mean, it certainly doesn't sound like he's going to be coming back anytime soon.
James, it went from being a thigh issue to, from what I'm reading, I'm like, well, you're basically describing an ACL. And I'm like, why has that not been expressed? We're all still thinking, bloody hell, him in this thigh. If it's an ACL, mate, my word.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Partey anytime soon.
It's just negligent. It's just absolutely negligent. It doesn't make sense as to why, if you knew that back in, August away. You didn't push even more for a potential additional sort of six player or cover. I mean, because okay, you got Jorginho, but Jorginho could be sold this window, James. He's only got till the summer left, unless we give him a new deal, which I think we probably will. But he'll want 2 to 3 years, and we might be like, no, you can have one, and it's rolling.
Yeah.
So,
I think we've got to be ruthless with Jorginho in the summer.
Yeah.
For me, I would, anyone that's in that kind of.
Well, I mean, El Nenny's at the
zone.
AFCON, and he's being linked to go as well. So,
Well, I mean, one like that makes sense, doesn't it? El Neni, Cedric, Nelson, and Ketia. I think even to an extent, you've got to be ruthless with someone like Aaron Ramsdale, get the money in. And as much as I want to see some of these players be moved on in January and it be done quite promptly so that we can get a bit of money in to then spend on someone this window, we've got, well, as of now, less than a month. We've got 3 and a bit weeks to do something, and we've not got rid of any players yet. And I saw people on Twitter yesterday talking about potentially getting 30 plus million for someone like Reece Nelson. You're living in an alternative reality if you think that's going to happen. You're not going to get 30 million for Reece Nelson. At best, you're going to get maybe 10. You might get 15 if you're very, very lucky. You've got a couple of teams interested.
I mean, if West Ham are offering it, take it, because you're never going to get that money for him again. But yeah, like you said, I can't believe it. I can't believe that value even's been put out. If that's what the club even think he's worth, they're living in an alternative reality.
This is Eduardo Hagen, who I'm sure you've seen on Twitter as well, who has a 30 million price value on Reece Nelson, which, I think we've all got to be realistic isn't going to happen. One player that I do think we could maybe get that sort of money for is Eddie Nketiah. I know obviously he's, not rated by some, but this is a guy that scored a Premier League hat-trick not too long ago. He does have a pretty good record when he starts games. I think for a lot of teams, someone like Crystal Palace is sniffing around him. He could be that poacher in front of goal that if he plays week in, week out, could be a 15 to 20 goal a season striker. So that's where we could possibly get a bit of money. But that aside, over half an hour in, we've not actually spoken about the Liverpool game yet. First initial thoughts, mate. The FA Cup, I would love to see Arsenal win it this season. A lot of people are quite happy to see us throw it in favour of going all out in the Premier League and the Champions League. Look, if we were guaranteed to win one of those trophies, sure, no problem. Fact of the matter is we're not. Silverware is very hard to win. I would love to see Arsenal be in the final come May. How are you feeling about it?
I'm exactly the same as you. Well, if Arsenal were in a raffle, I want to win it, James. You can't diminish any competition whatsoever. And again, it's Liverpool, like you said. They're 5 points clear of us at the moment. They're arguably the best team in the country. If you want to, if we're looking at the table, they are the best team in the country. And as much as I believed at the time, even though people were going, oh yeah, but it's the Community Shield, it's a friend. I said, no, just for the mentality in the group alone, knowing that they can beat Man City will be massive for them, because then they might think, oh yeah, we can beat them in the league as well. Well, what happened, James? We beat them in the Community Shield. Okay, it was a deflected goal and it was on penalties, but we beat them. Then we played them in the league. What happened again? Another deflected goal, but we beat them. And that's the first time we beat them in a bloody long time. And so Liverpool, they're coming to our patch at the weekend. Let's beat them in the cup. Make them think, oh, okay, we thought Arsenal, same as some Arsenal fans, me included. Some Arsenal fans, they're thinking Arsenal are going this way. No, we're going we're going back up. We're not stagnating down. We're coming back up. And yeah, if we can beat them at the weekend at home, and then we got that game against them in the league, like you said, that gap, chip away at it. We got a show out here. I can't take another Fulham type performance especially against the Liverpool. It's Liverpool. You raise your game. You got to raise your game, and yeah, I think that we'll. I saw some saying, "Do you think we'll rest?" I think we'll go quite strong. I mean, I initially didn't put Ramsdale in my team, James, because I was like,
hang on. No team lineup stuff just yet, mate. We'll come to it. I think it's really important what you're saying there about getting back to winning ways straight away, and for the mental boost to beat Liverpool at home. I hope we take the shackles off a little bit, and I hope we're not, really insistent on this domination, controlled type performance, which don't get me wrong, I like, but it's the cup. If we won 5-4, it doesn't matter. You're in the hat to the next round. It doesn't matter if you concede a load of goals, so long as you win. I hope it's an entertaining, exciting game from both sides. And I hope we're able to get the win, but it's definitely not going to be easy. I think Liverpool are going to go strong in this one as well. And it's funny, you mentioned about some of the games we've got coming up. Obviously, if we were to hypothetically win this one, and that's not a given, after that we've got a little break, and then it's Crystal Palace in the league, followed by potentially another FA Cup game if we get through. Forest away, which is going to be a really tough game. I don't think that's going to be easy by any means. Then it's Liverpool at home. I mean, we could very quickly turn the tide on what has been a very depressing week. All it takes is for us to get a result on Sunday. And yeah, it doesn't matter if it's the cup, we're not going to get points on the board. But in terms of bringing back a feel-good factor, I mean, imagine if we were to sweep Liverpool aside 2-0, keep them at bay, put in a really good performance. Martinelli gets a goal, Jesus gets a goal, Odegaard plays fantastic. Suddenly, all that good feeling comes back again. And then we bring that into the game against Crystal Palace a few weeks later. This game is really, really important for me. So sorry to cut you off there, mate. But that's why I think we have to go strong.
You make a great point because, again, like I said, it's the mentality. But they play this game, and I believe that we're then going to the warm weather camp in Dubai or somewhere. They're doing a warm weather training type camp somewhere. And again, get them all to get that win at the weekend, which will be massive, and then get in there as a group and everything. And some of these like niggles and everything else that we're talking about, let's work on them. Like, keep the group tight. Maybe if we can make some additions to it that, steady it or even improve it, James, and then kick on. That's what we need. That's what we need to do. That's what we all want to happen. That's what we all want to do. There's so much that if you are constructive with your criticism, you do get these people that think you're a bad fan and they try and police you as fans. I'm not about that. I don't think that anything that I say normally goes over a level or a line that isn't classed as constructive criticism. If people do, that's fine. They're entitled to their opinions. But I just think sometimes you just got, let's get a bit more perspective on it. And a bit, for me, it's like we said earlier, it's all about that mentality, and that mentality will be tanked for me if we go out of another trophy to Liverpool. And if Liverpool, like they did against Newcastle, if they put what was it, 7 something XG,
7.5,
yeah, I think that there will be people you will see more people coming out with comments that aren't constructive, James.
So sorry, mate. Just to ask, I know obviously we're not avid Liverpool watchers, but why is it working so well for them at the minute? And look, don't get me wrong, it's not been all free flowing for Liverpool. They've had some pretty hairy moments as well. It wasn't too long ago that they were losing at home to Fulham.
Yeah.
It looked like they were destined to sacrifice the 3 points. They came back to win that game 4-3. But they seem to be scoring goals at will. They've had a complete overhaul of their midfield, essentially. They brought in Endo. They've brought in Gravenberch. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name. They brought in McAllister.
Szoboszlai.
Yeah, they've had more wholesale changes than us. And then not to mention, their front three has gone from Mane, Firmino, Salah to a very different dynamic front three where they've still got Salah as the mainstay, but then they've got Gakpo, Jota, Nunez, Diaz. I think that's what I quite like about Liverpool. I hate to say it, but I love their variety. They've got lots of different options, lots of different players that can bring different things. I mean, say what you like about Nunez, but he's a very different player to, say, a Cody Gakpo. And to have those options, I think, is certainly not something that should be underestimated. But not to go on about it, but why is it working so well for Liverpool at this moment in time?
I believe he was in the chat earlier, Mr. Melvin Marks. You know how much we love Melvin here. He said to me the other day that Arsenal have plan A, and then it's plan A with different players. You've just said there, variety options. They can switch. If they want to, they can go, let's go long to Nunez and ping it in there. Gakpo's very good in the air. And the thing is as well, James, is they've never changed their tempo. We spoke earlier, and it has definitely happened. I can't be told otherwise, James. We have changed the way that we play in a season. We are so much more slower and ponderous. And again, I believe it's this control that has been coached into them now. So I think that is the main reason. Is was it Gegenpressing, whatever? You know what Jurgen Klopp wants. They know, they buy into it, and as well, James, since he had his outburst against Tottenham, rightfully so, they've had everything go their way. You know,
Yeah,
they
look at
are,
that penalty at the weekend.
they are called Liverpool for a reason. They are, since he's come out and gone berserk, which again, rightfully so, he's had everything his way because they are scared of upsetting that fan base, that town, and there is a journalistic circle within Liverpool that are very, very loud, and the refs and everything else that don't upset them, and they've had everything. I mean, come on, not staying on your feet to score a goal into an empty net. You'd rather dive and win a penalty. Shameful, mate. It's absolutely shameful.
Certainly is. Interesting comment here from Carl Stark. No Salah for Liverpool this weekend.
Is that confirmed? Because there's some players from other teams that are going to the AFCON late. They are playing this weekend. So,
shall we have a look?
I mean, we've sent all of our ones straight away. But
well, we would, wouldn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I bet.
Because they were like, yeah, Japan want Tomiyasu on Friday. I was like, yeah, I bet Endo goes next week though. And then obviously, if Salah is definitely not in, I will, I'll be over the moon.
Yeah, I can't see it anywhere. Just bear with me. I'm trying to find it somewhere.
If he's gone already, fantastic. I mean, that's Zinchenko being able to go to bed at night without having to check under it for.
Well, I mean, will Zinchenko even be available for this game because he wasn't in the squad for an injury, was he?
Probably not.
So, I mean, with that in mind, who is going to start a left back for us? Kivior again, presumably, because we've got no Tomiyasu.
Yeah. I think you got no choice, haven't you? You got to back it. You got no one. You haven't got anybody else. So I don't want to see Cedric playing at left back. I don't know about you.
No, I mean,
and as much as I believe in Walters potentially being a player, I think throwing him in at Liverpool in the FA Cup is a massive ask.
Yeah, it certainly is. It does say here Salah will be absent for Liverpool's opening FA Cup third round tie.
Okay, fingers crossed. Yeah, I'll take that.
I mean, that is from Sports Mole, so I'm not sure how reliable they are. But take it from Sports Mole and take it from Carl Stark. Salah is supposedly not going to be around at the weekend.
Is Carl Stark Sports Mole?
And Carl, well, it could be undercover. He's also followed up with Liverpool confirmed that he won't feature. So look, there we go. Touch wood, that's the case.
Because Scousers are renowned for telling the truth, aren't they?
Absolutely. But that's a big bonus for us, isn't it, mate? I mean, Salah obviously scored against us when we went to Anfield not too long ago. We know what a world-class talent he is.
Yeah.
It's a big part of their attack that they're not going to have.
Yeah. And I do wonder, will they play? Is it Kelleher who's normally their cup keeper? Instead of
he's not bad.
No, sorry, not Adrian Allison. No, he's not. But I mean, if they're not going to play Allison as well, I'd be quite happy because he's a fantastic. I think he's the best keeper in the league, really. Allison.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Arteta throwing the cups in years gone by. Don't get me wrong, I do think he has played significantly weakened sides in the FA Cup. But so has Klopp. Like I remember when they lost something like 7-0 or whatever to Aston Villa. He played a team of 16, 17-year-olds. I can't remember if that was in the league or the FA Cup.
It was the league.
Yeah, I thought it was the league.
It's a season after they just won the league. So it was like when they had a couple of wins and they were like, oh, we're going to retain it. They were getting carried away and giddy. And then it was just like, brought back down to earth 7-0.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like COVID football was something else.
It was terrible.
But I do distinctly remember a game they played at Villa Park with a really young side, and he's not done it just in the FA Cup. He's done it in the Carabao Cup as well. He does occasionally play very rotated teams. I don't expect him to do that against us. I think he'll be looking to set down a marker. And I think for me with the FA Cup, obviously the more you progress in the Champions League and the FA Cup, the more the fixtures become congested. But I think when everyone's fit, which is definitely not a given at Arsenal, we should have a squad capable of competing on all of these fronts. The FA Cup, it's every couple of weeks. It's not like you're cramming it in between games. So I think although if you do get further in the competition, that's when it becomes a bit more difficult. But I think we've got more than ample opportunities to go far in this tournament, to give players that aren't ordinarily featuring, some minutes. Probably not this weekend, but if we get past this weekend, we get a more favourable draw. That's when you can look to play your likes of Raul Walters, Jorginho, etc. So with that in mind, mate, I rudely interrupted you previously, but what would your 11 be going into this one?
So, right, like I was saying earlier, originally I didn't have Ramsdale in my team, James, because I was like you, thinking that he's one of your most sellable assets. So why would you cup tie someone that you're potentially wanting to sell? Because if he can't play in the cup, teams that may want him, it decreases the value. And I do believe Arsenal have tanked values of players over the years, and I'd like to actually get what I believe is the benchmark value for him, which is 60 plus million. I think is
that ain't going to happen.
no,
It's a nice
no, no,
thought, but it won't
no.
happen.
I know, but I believe that to me, that's what I think is an acceptable bid for Ramsdale, especially if it's the Geordies, mate. If the Geordies want him, they can pay 120 million. You're the richest club in the world. If you want him, you can pay for him. But yeah, I would go with Ramsdale in goal because obviously he's the second. He's the second choice. He's the cup keeper now. I'm going to put Ben White out there, even though I know he's struggling. The centre backs pick themselves. Why change them? It's got to be Saliba and Gabriel for me. I think Kivior at left back again. If Zinchenko was fit, I still wouldn't play him. I don't trust him against big teams. He's not shown that he can perform against big sides. Declan Rice in the middle, obviously. And then Havertz and Odegaard. And then the front three, you've got to go back to Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus. Even though I wouldn't begrudge Smith Rowe starting either as a left 8 for Havertz or on the left wing. But yeah, I think that's what you got to do.
Okay,
And,
it'd be pretty much the same for
and
me.
I can see Count Chocula's comment here. Kivior is much worse, is it? Well, maybe not a defense. Maybe not. Yeah, in terms of dominating the ball and the passing, 100% agree with you. But as a defender, it's not even close.
I love that name.
Yeah, yeah.
Count Joker is something
Yeah,
special.
yeah. Is it actually a cereal?
I don't know, but I wish it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
it
it
should
is.
be. Off
I think
that.
it is. I actually think it is. Yeah, but
that is fantastic.
yeah.
My team would pretty much be the same as yours, but I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball in there. I would probably like to see us go with Jorginho at the base and Rice playing in the 8, just to give us
That's not a bad shout. Yeah,
just to give us a bit more control. And I think that's a bit more of a stronger midfield for it. I actually think for all of his flaws, Jorginho passes the ball really quickly. Keeps things moving. And we've missed that bit of dynamism. As much as I love Rice in the past couple of games, I do think he's divvied on the ball a little bit. He's passed it sideways. Excellent ball progressive passer. The stats speak for themselves, but just in these past couple of games, he's not quite been on it. So I want to see him play a little bit more with the shackles off, where he can make those marauding runs going forward, play him in the left 8, Jorginho at the base. And then I would love to see Smith Rowe play on that left-hand side. I don't think it will happen. And Martin needs to play his way into form, so I'd stick with him on the left. But I think, we could see Trossard on the left-hand side. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of lineup he puts out. I would still like to see our strongest team. But just before we sign off, mate, one comment here from Russ Morgan. Very unusual link that we've had in terms of the transfer market in the past couple of days. Curtis Jones of Liverpool. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Obviously, it's not one that's going to happen in January, but could potentially happen in the summer. I mean, I've always thought of Curtis Jones as a steady Eddie, fairly decent player, but not tearing up any trees. I thought he was okay when he played against us. But apparently very highly rated by Arteta. Is he the sort of man you would like to see us bring in come the summer?
Right. I'll stick my neck out now and say, look, Declan Rice until last season, because I watched him a lot last season, I did not think that he is the player that we've got now. And currently I look at Curtis Jones and I think, how is he as a bit part player for Liverpool going to be a starter for Arsenal and raise the level. I don't see it at the moment. If it happens, then okay, I'll back it, and we'll see. We'll go from there.
He's
But
playing a lot at the minute, though, mate. He's playing a lot of games for Liverpool right now.
I don't see him as. Is he what he raises the level that much for us?
Not
Really?
for me. No.
Yeah, I don't see it.
He's
sorry.
very Conor Gallagher-y, if that makes sense. Same, maybe
Yeah,
different
yeah.
profiles,
But
but same sort of offering.
if we signed him, people would go berserk. They'd go, they'd be like, "Oh, another Chelsea reject."
Would you take Gallagher?
No.
Okay.
If we're gonna sign an 8 that's in the Premier League, James, or someone that I believe could play at the 8, I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, James, I want it to be Smith Rowe. But if we're gonna buy one, go buy Eze from Palace.
You think he could do the defensive side as well?
I wouldn't be making him do the defensive side. You get a proper full, because for me, we're going to progress on from Zinchenko. So either hopefully Timber's fit, or Tomiyasu, now that he's signing his new contract. If we tie him down and he can stay fit, you're playing him as your left back, aren't you? You're playing him or Timber as your left back, Ben White as your right back. So you've actually got proper defenders, hopefully, that are fit and playing. And then you don't have to make him do the defensive work. Again, like I said, we can up that tempo. You've got Rice there at a 6. You've got Odegaard there. Probably going to have a new striker in there. And what someone like an Eze coming in there and feeding the ball into all of them. Oh, I'm salivating, mate. I love the guy. He's was in our academy and we let him go.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an out there shout. It's not one that a lot of people have thought about, but why not? If it could work.
He's class. He's class. If we don't, someone else will. Same with Elise. Again, he's another one. He plays he sometimes plays Saka's position, so I can't see him getting in there. But
so what you actually want is just a raid on Crystal Palace. That's what you're saying. Should we take Hodgson whilst we're at it?
Who? Sorry.
No, I'm not going to repeat that comment.
Oh, Hodgson. No. But I thought someone else then. I was like, who?
No, don't worry about that. We've got another fantastic comment here from the one and only Count Chocula. Selling Joe Willett coming back to haunt us. Could have used him in that 8 position. That's a really good point, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you think about it, the sale was, it helped us big time. It was one of our better ones, actually.
Well, it funded Odegaard, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I know who I'd rather have out of the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've bought a lot of players for a lot of money, but going back to that Martin Odegaard transfer for 35 million quid or whatever, it's going to go down as one of the best pieces of business this club does. That alongside Gabriel for 30 odd million quid. I mean,
what did you make of this Onana link, James? I know you, as in the midfielder one at Everton, not the goalkeeper.
Well, no, I definitely wouldn't be wanting the goalkeeper.
No.
I mean, I remember when we played Everton a couple of times, and he's always been a bit of a thorn in our side. Very energetic player, obviously defensive first. I quite like the idea of having someone like him at the base and maybe allowing Declan Rice to just not have to worry so much about the defensive side of things. But he wouldn't be the first name that springs into my head. What about you?
I like him. He's going to cost, but yeah, I like him. I do. I think there's something there. He's one that I feel if he come in, we can make him better than he already is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
he's got an extra. Yeah, he's got an extra level to go up, and I think he'd suit us.
Well, I've just looked him up now. I didn't realize he's only 22. So with that in mind, maybe it'd be worth taking a punt on someone like him if the price is right. But seeing as Everton just paid 33 million quid for him, it's probably going to be a pricey one.
Might not be this window.
No, and maybe not the next either, depending on who we're going for. But before I let you go, mate, Liverpool, FA Cup of the weekend. What's your score prediction?
We are going to absolutely thrash them 1-0.
God, I'll take that all day long. I'm going to be.
It's going to be one of those where we're going to be sat there going, "How are we still in this?" Because I reckon we're going to get peppered. But we'll have a Ramsdale like at Anfield last season performance, mate. He'll save our bacon, I reckon. And we'll get away with a 1-0.
Do you remember when we played Liverpool back in the 2013-14 season in the FA Cup? And it was I think it was a 2-0 or a 2-1. And we had, the likes of Carl Jenkinson playing, and they battered us in that game. It was when Sturridge and Suarez were, probably the best
Yeah, were
for
they in that
wearing.
like purple kit that they look like
It
Carter
was.
Ribena?
I think that was one of their kits that season, but the
Oh,
kit
okay.
they were playing in was white and black, and they had kind of like a diamonds on the kit in black. I just remember Liverpool being so good at that point. I'm not sure if Steven Gerrard missed a penalty in that game as well, but that's one of those games that I think back to that we had no divine right to win, but somehow we came through it with a victory. I'd love to see something a bit more convincing at the weekend. But I'm actually going to agree with Carl Stark in the comments, and I'm going to go for Arsenal 3-2 Liverpool. And I'd love to see that scoreline, actually. But only if we come from 2-0 down to win it 3-2.
James, sorry, I know you want to wrap up. Is that the game? Is that one of the only games where Oxlade-Chamberlain actually played as a centre mid? And everyone was like, "This is what you need to do, Wenger. Stop playing him out." What? Because he got a goal and an assist, right? Podolski got the other goal, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Podolski scored.
Yeah.
Right after
Like you
half
said,
time.
Gerard scored a pen.
I don't know if he scored or if he missed it. I can't remember.
No, he definitely scored a pen. He definitely scored a pen.
Let me look it up. I'm
Yeah.
intrigued now.
Yeah.
Because no, we did beat them 2-0 that season, but it was. Do you remember when we were flying high at the top of the table in 2013, late 2013?
Yeah, because we played them in the cup in 2013.
Ramsey scored an unbelievable goal. Yeah, it was 2-1. It was 2-1.
Yeah, because I remember we played. Was it AC Milan? And he played Oxlade-Chamberlain down the middle, like as a centre mid as well. And I was like, "This is where you need to play this guy, Wenger. Like,
Was
stop
that
putting
the
him."
11-12 season?
He was class. It was like just play him as a centre midfielder for God's sake, because he actually performs here.
So I'm not sure if he played as a central midfielder that day. So I'm looking back at the lineup and I'm going off on a massive tangent here. But the team for that game was Fabianski, Carl Jenkinson, Per Mertesacker, Laurent Koscielny, Nacho Monreal, Mikel Arteta, Matthew Flamini, Chamberlain, Ozil, Podolski, Sanogo.
Wow.
What a team.
Wow.
What a team. Look how far we've come.
And who was on the bench? Viviano. Oh, my word.
Emiliano Viviano. Oh, my God.
He never played a game. Gnabry, Gibbs, Santi, Wilshere, Giroud.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not a bad bench. Sanya, Wilshere, Cazorla, Gibbs, Giroud, Gnabry. Cool. I remember it was that season as well in the Cup where Gnabry scored that goal. Was it
Swansea?
Gnabry? Yeah, he scored against Swansea, but then he laid on the assist for Cazorla in the Spurs game when Walcott did the 2-0.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I do miss that guy. Yeah, I'll leave it there, mate, because I could talk about this all day long. But
no, we both think Arsenal are going to win. That's all. That's the most important thing.
We do. We certainly do. But make sure to get your score predictions in the comments box below. Big thank you as well to Ruth Beck, our sponsor, for sponsoring the podcast. Make sure you go and check her out. We'll be doing more giveaways with her throughout the course of the season. And Amanda and Chris, and potentially myself, depending on what time I get home from the game, we'll be back to look back at what will hopefully be a thumping Arsenal win against Liverpool on Sunday evening. And make sure, of course, to check out James at LL Cool James 91. Subscribe to the James Johnston football channel. Anything you'd like to add before we go, mate?
Yeah, just hang on in there. Just hang on in there. We're going to turn it round. Come on.
Couldn't have put it better myself, certainly. Hang in there. So, from myself and JJ, until the next time, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.